The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
This is Haymaker Combat Sports. Here, coming straight from the source. Only with the real, they ain't here to dress it up. Sweet science, MMA, you can get it all from us. Trust, 5 stars cause it's live. And through the fight game, we can guide ya. Slick talking, putting them in caution. Passing all the goals cause the audio is awesome. What you waiting for? Spread the word, tell a friend. This the podcast where all of the discussion ends. When they start going strike for strike, this the show that'll tell you what you seen in the fight. They ain't playing on the mic, this a welcome to the show. Warm it up for the squad, Haymaker of the bros. I'm a bow wow, you can hear it from the pros. It's Haymaker Combat Sports, time to roll.
Welcome back to Haymaker Combat Sports, powered by the Belly Up Sports Media Network. I'm your host, EJ Reed, joined by my fellow hosts, Aaron Admire, Steve Johnson. How's it going, fellas?
It's a Monday.
Holiday week.
Short week.
I'm going to be flying South Carolina this week. Not for the holiday. It just happened to fall on. We use like this, the fiscal year from this summer, last summer, for the little small business I have with my buddy. And so I fly back around this time every year to do taxes, and usually it happens to fall in line with like the 4th of July weekend, and 2 birds, 1 stone, get to go back, hopefully get some barbecue, maybe watch the fireworks. You going to a fireworks show, Admire?
Yeah. I was right before we got on. I was talking to my girlfriend trying to figure out what we want to do. There's like a ton of them on Wednesday night and a ton of them on Thursday, trying to figure out which one we want to go to. You know, got them at the lake, got them down in the city. So we'll hit a couple of them.
Yeah, that time of the year, about the halfway point to 2024, man. This year's kind of flying by, isn't it?
Really quick.
Gee, before you know it's going to be 2025, but first half down, second half to go. And this past weekend, we had UFC 303 that went down in Vegas. Like we talked about on the previous show, it was supposed to be Conor McGregor headlining. Instead, we got Pereira versus Yuri Prochazka. So we'll eventually get to that once we talk about the main event. But they had some fights on for the prelims, and the prelims, like always. In the bantamweight division, we had Vinicius Oliveira defeating Ricky Simon by unanimous decision. In the flyweight division, we had Saruyu. I butchered that name. Saruyu, defeating Carlos Hernandez by unanimous decision. In the heavyweight division, we had Martin Budai defeating Andre Arlovsky, the wily veteran, by unanimous decision. Split decision. And then for the early prelims, we had in the women's strawweight division, Jillian Robertson defeating the karate hottie Michelle Waterson Gomez. Steve, you got to catch the Arlovsky fight. How did that go?
Yeah, and I'm very surprised. I mean, maybe the contract, but Arlovsky, I don't know if he's fighting for money or he looks like he's fighting just to be in there. Maybe just to say, hey, I can be still up to par with these young cats. But as far as trying to fight for a reason, he's definitely not fighting like it. You can see that his age is definitely catching up with him. And I really don't see any point of Arlovsky fighting anymore, especially if you get somebody that has KO power. He's just risking from now on damage.
Now, did he look competitive at all, or was it pretty one-sided?
It looked more sparry and just trying to do enough to be in there to what it looked like to me.
By Steve's account, it sounds like he didn't look too good, so I guess is it time for him to hang it up, Admire?
It's probably been time for a while. I didn't get to see the fight, but just looking over the stats of it, he actually landed a lot more significant strikes than Martin Budai. But Badai landed more total strikes. So, I mean, it sounds like from what Steve said, it was almost like a sparring match because there was a lot of striking going on in this fight, but nothing too big.
Yeah, I mean,
And I mean, Arlovsky's record is now 34-24. I mean,
yeah,
you know, a lot of his losses did come from knockout. He was on a streak where he was getting knocked out by everybody. You know, about 10 years ago, we kind of had a little resurgence, but there's nothing left for him to prove. I mean, if he's getting paid decent, I mean, I can try to see what his pay is, but I don't know what he's got left to do.
Yeah, his record, doesn't really tell the whole story because towards the end of his career, he was trading wins and losses, went on losing streaks, but everybody knows, like, in his prime, he definitely had Hall of Fame credentials, former heavyweight champion. So, but like you said, what is there left for him to prove besides taking brain damage? Bow out gracefully while you still have all your faculties with you,
Let's see here. I got up some fighter pay. Let's see what we got. Nah, it's just them stupid. The pay for their tenure, it looks like so far, what I'm finding.
Yeah. And Steve, I know you say you caught the Waterson fight. How did that look?
Like we were talking about earlier, what Admar said, it was definitely a peer domination. And I think we talked about it, EJ, to where if only there was that atom weight class, she would be more suitable for that class. But I think maybe she's fighting these women that are maybe got a little bit more strength and she's stuck in a hard place in between those weight classes. Or else I think she would have done a lot of things, but like Admar said, she was getting dominated on the ground, on the feet. Her face didn't look good at all at the end of the fight. And for what she's done and how far the championship belt is from where she is, especially this loss, I think it was a good decision for her to hang it up.
Oh, so she retired afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, she retired. I mean, she did get one takedown. I mean, she landed a couple good strikes, but I mean, other than that, it was just completely one-sided. It wasn't good.
So she has an interesting legacy. She's kind of like in that Uriah Faber type, realm where she was in Invicta before this. She was the Invicta 105 champion. Came up the UFC, was a little bit undersized, like Steve said, for that strawweight division. Could never get over the hump, but she was marketable, for maybe reasons not inside the cage. Sometimes UFC sees women that are marketable outside the cage and try to push them. I try to put it as eloquently as I could without being crass. But but she was never able to get over that hump competitively. She's always floating around with top 10, maybe she cracked the top 5 one time, maybe throughout her career, but could never get over that hump. So I'm sure she will have a lot of opportunities, post UFC career because she speaks well and she's not problematic outside of the cage. So I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah,
what do you think about that, Amar?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice, they don't put a lot of female fighters on the commentary and on the mic. It'd be nice, maybe get her into a position like that. They have a couple women that do a little bit of the stuff, but they weren't like former fighters. It'd be nice to get that. I like listening to some of like Paul Felder on the mic, and DC's good on the mic. All those other guys, get the women more involved in it. From her previous, she used to be a model, actress, stunt woman, stuff like that. So she definitely has other things she can do. But right now, fighting to stay in her bag, she's lost 7 of her last 8 fights. So I think it is a good choice to hang it up and maybe expand on other things.
Wow, that's terrible. She's only won one of her last 8 fights.
Yeah, she beat Angela Hill split decision back in 2020.
Wow. I'm surprised she didn't try to retire earlier. If you lose that many fights in that span of a time, you kind of probably get down on yourself and kind of question if you still have it or not. But she stuck with it. So, hey,
And only 2 of those losses were finishes. The rest went to decision.
man, she only got finished twice. So, yeah. Hats off to the Karate Hottie Michelle Waterston Gomez for having a nice long career. But yeah, that was for the early prelims. Let's move on to the prelims over on ESPN. The bantamweight division, you had Peyton Talbot defeating Giannis Jamori by KO first round. And then a catchweight fight, Jean Silva defeating Charles Jourdain by KO in the second round. Featherweight division, you had Andre Touchy-Feely defeating Cub Swanson by split decision. And then to top it off, we had in the middleweight division, Joe Pyfer defeating Marc-Andre Barriault by KO first round. I know each one of y'all got to see a good bit of these prelims, and you were talking about Talbot. How did Talbot look, Admire?
Amazing. I mean, he knocked him out in 19 seconds. This kid has had 3 fights in the UFC, and he spent 1 minute and 38 seconds in the octagon fighting. I think the trajectory for this kid, it's rising quick. He's getting a lot of eyes on him. He's getting a lot of hype behind him. I think that this is somebody that the UFC is definitely going to put a big push on.
What are your thoughts on Talbot, Steve?
Definitely. And how old is he?
25.
Yeah, this is a young cat in the way, and I have to see his previous fights. Like you said, he ended it all of them, so I highly doubt he was tested as far as grappling. But you can tell the way he strikes. He knows he has a early understanding of it. Like to me, I feel like he used a Pierre tactic to knock this cat out. Yaris, he was waiting in, he waited on his back foot and he anchored that foot and curved that left hook. And it for real, if you looked at it, it didn't even look like he torqued power like Pierre did, and he knocked him cold. So this dude's a problem. He's got KO power. He's going to lofty heights in the future, I think.
So y'all think that they should fast track this kid, or they should take it slow and steady? Because remember the last time they fast tracked somebody, the Sage Northcutt. You don't want to get the Sage Northcutt syndrome, and
I don't know, man. This kid, he looks good. Like Steve said, I mean, he's got that Alex Pereira type striking and power, and he's got the accuracy of Sean O'Malley. It's not like to me in the beginning, I could kind of see that Sage Northcutt, had his holes in his game, kind of like MVP, that in and out style. But this kid, I mean, right now he's had 9 fights. He's won 7 of them by knockout, one by submission, 1 by decision. So, I mean, he looks really good. And, his first fight was 58 seconds. Second fight, 21 seconds. And this fight was 19 seconds. They could throw this kid back on another card in a month if they wanted to. I mean, his fights he ain't taking any damage. He could have a quick turnaround. So even if they don't fast track him, they could get him more exposure with lower level stuff and just kind of really feel him out. But I guarantee you, this kid's going to be fighting for a belt one day.
Well, it sounds like this kid has a bright future. Maybe we'll see him clash with Sean O'Malley one day. O'Malley's a little bit older, but never know. They're probably only like 3 or 4 years apart. And who knows what happened with O'Malley after this Marab fight.
Yeah.
But we'll definitely keep our eyes on Talbot. Steve, how was that Cub Swanson fight, him and Feely?
It was actually a good, entertaining fight. I felt like they were trying to take each other's heads off a lot of time. Of course, more of Cub Swanson, the way he strikes. But it seemed like Feely was to the punch, maybe because his length, and maybe that's why. But I wouldn't say Cub Swanson didn't get good shots in, like those jumping in, switching straights, and he was catching him with that, and coming off the pivot hooks, and he was catching Feely, but Feely was also getting back at him too because of his I believe his height, and I think he was able to point it out as far as to get the win, Feely. But Cub Swanson I think he's up there in age, and he's still a competitor with these young cats, which I think Philly is just a few years younger than him.
Yeah, Swanson's 40 years old.
Mm.
Like you said, he looked competitive in it. I mean, if you're not taking a lot of damage and you can still do it at a high level, I say keep going.
Mm-hmm.
But like in the case of a guy we were talking about earlier, if you're Arlovsky and you're taking a lot of damage, then hang it up. But yeah, shout out to Cub Swanson for hanging in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last fight on the prelims, Piper defeating Marc-Andre Barriault by KO. I know you got to check this one out. How did Piper look in this one?
Dude, he looked good. Marc-Andre didn't land a single strike. Piper hit him with a right that kind of backed him up against the cage, and then he threw like a 4-piece and just knocked him out. I mean, it's making the rounds on TikTok. I mean, it was a good looking knockout. You can't really say anything else other than dominant, with Marc-Andre not even getting off one shot.
Did you check this one out too, Steve?
Yeah. He almost got in there, if I believe, it got him near the cage, and he threw a combination to where the first one hit him dead in the temple, and I think the second one hit him like in the back of it, which finished him. But he got him out there with a nice combination and has devastating power. And from what his post-fight, what he sounds like he's seen his flaws and adjusted and ready to get back in there to knock out. He was pretty excited. So shouts out to Piper. He did.
Yeah, check that out. Yeah, look that up on TikTok. I mean, it's like a 4 or 5-piece combination, just working him.
That's what's up. It sounds like he put on a performance. But yeah, I was out of town this weekend. I got to catch the main card, but I didn't get to catch the prelim. So y'all definitely sold me on it. I'm gonna go back and fire up the ESPN Plus during the week and go back and catch some of these fights. So definitely seems like it was worth watching. But let's move on to the main card, fellas. The curtain jerker this one, welterweight division. Ian Machado Gary defeating Michael Page by unanimous decision. Round one, I gave to Gary because of the grappling exchanges and he threatened that submission. Round two, I gave the MVP because he won the striking exchanges and he just appeared to be the faster guy. And round three, I think was a toss-up, but the second half of that round, Gary was able to out-grapple MVP and able to secure that decision. But all in all, I did not enjoy this fight. It wasn't really that exciting. And I told y'all it could go either way. It could be like a back and forth firefight, or it could be what we saw Saturday. So I'll kick it off to you, Admire. What were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I scored round one for Gary, round two for MVP, and I actually scored round three for MVP. But we know my brain works a little bit different. I don't score the same as the judges do. I think people should be awarded points for surviving submission attempts. I think Gary had him in some compromising positions early in the round one, but he wasn't really doing much with what happened in round three. He was on his back, and there wasn't really submission attempts or attempts to progress or anything else. So I think the MVP did enough in that third round with the striking to win that round. Not an exciting fight at all. You kind of know how that is with the MVP style, the Stephen Thompson, the Lyoto Machida. like that style, it's either going to be a very exciting fight or it's going to be a boring fight, because you got to have the right dance partner for it to be exciting. And it just wasn't a good matchup. I have my ideas about what I want to see with MVP next. Ian Gary, I didn't really learn much about him because he was going against such a different opponent in MVP. He didn't get to really showcase his skills, or we didn't get to see the hype that's been behind Ian Gary. You know what I mean? There's been this whole hype train behind him, and there wasn't a lot to see there. So, it was okay, but I'm not ever going to go back and rewatch that fight on purpose.
Steve?
Yeah, it was disappointing. What I saw is somebody that went out their way. If they're fighting a striker, doesn't want to risk it, they have a trump card, which is a takedown, which I think Michael Venom Page, from his previous fights, outside of UFC, has a pretty good takedown defense. And I think he's in a level of competition to where he either has to upgrade that or work very hard on the ground to work on getting up, because that's essentially what I think that's what got him wasting time, definitely in that first round, staying on the ground. I think he caught his timing a little bit late, because there was towards the end of the fight, you can see he was getting his timing, and what looked like would have knocked him out. He caught him with a good one, I think a right, one of those dashing in straights, and I was like, woo, when I was watching the fight, like that could have knocked him out. And there's the whole fight, he was getting close, actually. So Ian Gary, I think he may run into some trouble if we look up who's in front of him, if he fights somebody who's a good striker. And it looked like when I was watching the fight that Ian Gary was getting tired and couldn't get those takedowns in the later rounds. So if he fights somebody more elite, which is, I'm not shitting on Venom Page, but this is a Bellator fighter that gave you problems. And I think Venom Page can fight with the elite, but he struggled with him. And Ian Gary has to, I say, not hype himself up to what he thinks he is, because I think he struggled this fight.
He said, no disrespect, Venom Page, and then you continued to shit on him. Oh, wow. He's a Bellator fighter, but I feel you. Just mess with you a little bit. So, Admire, you said you think you know what's up next for MVP. I have no clue what they're going to do with him next, because if he would have won this fight, they probably would have fast-tracked him to be on the verge for that title shot, but he didn't win. So I don't think the rankings have moved. I'm looking at UFC.com. I don't see any movement in it. So what do you do with MVP next?
I mean, you learned a lot that he can be taken down. I don't even think he defended well while he was on the ground. He survived, but I don't think it was due to him defending. I think it was Ian Gary not doing enough to submit him. For me, in my mind, the only fight for MVP is Stephen Thompson. They both have that same style. That's the only thing that makes sense. Anybody else has the blueprint now. Take MVP down. And I think anybody kind of ranked above him is going to take him down and kind of do the same thing. So Stephen Thompson's the only one that's going to stand there and play that same game with him. And it goes back to what I said earlier. MVP and Stephen Thompson, it's either going to be the most boring fight in the world, or it's going to be super exciting because they have the exact same style.
I think it'll probably be super boring, because both of them are going to be dancing back and forth. Like you said, Machida kind of had that style. Anderson Silva kind of had that style. At some points in his career, be sitting back and waiting. Yeah, I can see them making that fight. That's if Steven doesn't have a fight lined up yet. Last time he went out against Shavkat and lost, got tapped out. I don't think he has anything lined up, so why not pair those two up? I wouldn't be mad at it. Steve, what do you think MVP should do next as far as matchups?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of some welterweights, and of course, Stephen Thompson, and it's almost like maybe that's not his only option, but for what's open. I mean, we kind of want to see Michael Venom Page repertoire and what we know him as, what we saw him in the Kevin Holland fight, throw a couple of dance moves, and I guess you can see he's humble enough, and to show that he didn't do that, I think we can look at the characteristics of Venom Page, that he was very nervous during that fight. He looked very frantic when he was on the ground when he first got taken down. So you can see his eyes widen up and try to get back up. And so that's very telling. I would like to see a stylistic match with him so we can see, and a competitive one so we can see where he's at, because he took a loss to, what is he, number 7 he was, Ian Gary at the time.
Yeah, Ian Gary is 7.
Yeah. I would say maybe somebody at the top 10 or maybe on the top of it, to get a fight there. And I think that's more suitable to reset.
See, I think they should, I don't want to say take a step back, but like get a fight where you kind of style on the guy. And we say this with the utmost respect. Neil Magny, he's a gatekeeper. I think that might be a fun fight. The last time we saw Neil Magny, he came back and got that TKO on Mike Malott. So that was back in January. So why not pair MVP and like Neil Magny up? See how that turns out.
Yeah, I'd like that fight. You might see Magny, stand up with him more, but Magny's decent on the ground. I mean, if he feels like he's losing on the feet, he's going to go for that takedown. If I was in MVP or his camp, I would train nothing but ground. I mean, his stand up, he's set in his ways. He's always going to have that same style. He's good at it. But now we know where the hole is. Plug the hole.
Well, isn't it kind of too late to teach an old dog new tricks, though?
Now, if he wants to continue, I mean, he's going to have to. Anybody in that top 5 is going to take him down and maul him.
You make some points. I feel like Izzy Adesanya, I feel like he's kind of got the blueprint on, like, if you're a striking guy and to have like pretty solid takedown defense. You don't really see Izzy getting takedown like that. I guess it's easier said than done, though.
I think the MVP's just had his whole career of people that want to be the person that beat MVP at his own game. So, because if you watch a lot of the Bellator fights, everybody stands with him, but that's not the game over here.
Yeah, well, he's gonna have to do something. Like I said, it looks like he's still ranked in the top 15. I don't know if they've redone the rankings yet, but I don't know. The matchmakers got work on their hands, but to look on the other side of things, what do you think is up next for Gary? Because it wasn't like a dominant win or anything like that, but he's number 7, and he said he wants to fight up. So what's next for him? What do you think, Am?
Didn't him and Colby Covington have words or some kind of little beef going on?
Yeah, but it seems like they don't want that. It seems like they don't. I don't think Covington really wants that fight like that. Yeah, he's always gonna have his sound bites, and he's gonna act like he wants to fight. But if they were gonna fight, I feel like the fight would have already been made instead of this fight.
I mean, Covington's last fight was a loss to the champ. I don't think that he has anything lined up. Maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, to me, that fight makes perfect sense. You got to stay somewhat active if you're going to sit up there in the top 5 spot. Ian Gary's number 7. It isn't like he's fighting somebody that's way behind him. It makes sense to me for them.
What's Covington ranked? Like 4?
4.
Okay. I guess. I mean, why not? What do you think, Steve?
I can see it. I don't know if he's gonna entertain that Sackvat because I think he called him out. I can see the Covington just because of the background story and behind that. But then again, Covington, who knows? He's stubborn and doesn't like giving people their way. And I can't think of anybody that would make any more sense with Ian Gary. I mean, I guess that would be a good bout to do. I like his shock block call out.
Yeah, I mean, if you really want to test your skills, you should try going against Shavkat Rachmanov. Too, like nobody wants to fight him for good purposes. I wouldn't want to go up against him either. Yeah, not a lot of these welterweights don't have anything lined up. What I'm seeing, so I don't know. It seems like they have a plethora of options they could go with in that welterweight division. Yeah, but I want to see a little bit more from Gary. I need to see a little bit more of that killer instinct, wherever they match him up with next. But we'll keep our eyes on where they go with him. But let's talk about this next fight. In the women's bantamweight division, we had Macy Chazon defeating Myra Bueno Silva, TKO, doctor stoppage. And the first round was pretty competitive here. Both of them were going back and forth. And then in that second round, Chazon got her down, elbow, and opened up that nasty gash. Like immediately, like I don't know if it was DC or Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan wanted the fight continue, but DC noted even before they were calling, he's like, "Oh, that's nasty. They're probably gonna call this." And they zoomed in close. It was like just gushing blood, and of course she was hanging in there like a trooper. She wanted to keep going, but the doctor was like, "Nope, I'm stopping this," and they called it off. What were your thoughts on that, Amire?
Yeah, man, I was into this fight. I was like, these girls are violent. You know, Mayra Buena Silva was just landing makers, dude. I was like, this fight is not going to last. She's going to get Macy out of there quick. And she held on and just landed the perfect elbow. I mean, it cracked her open. I'm trying to remember they used to show it on highlights. There was a black guy in the UFC that had a giant gash in his head, and they used to show that all the time. But that's what it reminded me of. Yeah, Marvin Eastman.
Yeah, that was I think the nastiest cut in history.
It reminded me of that. I mean, you know, Silva was opened up and just pouring blood. I thought when the doctor came in, I thought he was going to let it go for a second, but then they called it. You know, it was one of those fights that was just quick and violent, and it was over like that. You know, it made it into the second round, but it seemed like it went quick just because they were pushing so much action the whole fight. Like there wasn't a boring moment. They were on each other. So a good fight. You know, I run it back again, man. I'd watch that fight over and over.
Steve?
Definitely it was a good fight. You can tell that what's her name?
Buena Silva or Chazon?
Chazon, she was, using her link and trying to, getting shots off on her, but then you saw like it's like get off me. She started throwing combinations, and then they started, grappling. So it wasn't both women weren't shy to throw hands. Like we know the action kind of stopped when she got her to the ground, and of course talking about that elbow that stopped the momentum of that fight. And I think the fight could have continued because from what I remember, the doctor was trying to give the ref to make the decision, but he was like, so the ref asked him again, and then the doctor was like, "Oh, you didn't call it." So he was like, I think the ref was like, "All right, I'll call it off," because it seemed like the doctor was trying to give him a leeway to continue the fight, but he wouldn't make the decision. Then he was like, "Oh, I'll just call it off." It's almost like the ref was hitting it.
Yeah, it's called a doctor stoppage for a reason, but that doctor didn't really want to stop it. The doctor was like, "Hey, it's your call, man." Like, it was kind of weird, but I mean, who knows what would have happened? I mean, the way they were throwing, she might have powered through it, but she had that blood just dripping right in her eyes, so she would have had a disadvantage.
So are y'all with Joe Rogan? Y'all think should let them keep going, or y'all think the doctor was right by stopping it? I'll start with you, Admire.
I see it both ways. I mean, that's something, that's why I can't be a doctor or a ref, because that's a tough decision. I'm leaning towards should have let it go a little bit longer. If she hits that cut again and it opens more, or if it becomes a real vision problem, then stop it.
Steve?
As far as should the fight continue?
Yeah, that's what Joe Rogan was leaning towards.
Me, personally, I would say yeah. Me, I don't like seeing the gash open up even bigger than it was. But if the doctor was saying your call, that means that I guess she could still fight. I think it could have continued, but it only would have got worse.
Call me soft, I guess. I'm going to lean on the side of caution and stop it. I mean, like you said, it only could have got worse, and who knows what kind of long-term damage if her eye would have got even messed up even more. So I'm with the ref. I mean the doctor. I'm not mad at that stoppage. Live to fight another day, get patched up, healed up, and no need to take even more damage because that thing was gushing like a volcano. So I agree with that doctor. But like Am said, they could reschedule it. It was an action-packed fight. I wouldn't be mad if they did a rematch on that one, but I guess we'll see what they do moving forward with that. Let's move on to this next fight, though. Light heavyweight division, we had Roman Dolidze defeating Anthony Smith by unanimous decision. And in the round one, both guys were a little hesitant. Both were throwing those leg kicks, but Roman was the more effective striker in that first round. In that round two, Anthony Smith slipped there. Roman got on top of him and was trying to get him out of there. He was throwing some wild ground and pound, but Anthony Smith was able to weather the storm, and he was down on the mat for most of that round. And when they finally got back up, Roman cracked him with that nice left. And then in round three, Roman started taunting him a little bit. For some reason, that pissed DC off. I don't know why DC was so mad at that, but Smith seemed a little bit tired going into that last round, though. Both of the guys striking looked a little sloppy, but Roman was able to edge him out and landed the more effective strikes in that third round. So what were your thoughts on this one, Admire?
This is where my energy slowed way down for the night. They were both hesitant, like you said, but I don't know, man. To me, it was more apparent that Anthony Smith was kind of gun shy. He didn't seem like he wanted to engage much, or he was really afraid to take one. Roman did land some good shots on him. A lot of that stuff probably would have got some other fighters out of there, but Anthony Smith's got a tough chin, man. But yeah, this another one of those fights. You'll forget about it, never see it again on any highlights or anything. I don't know. Just looking at it, on paper, that should have been a more exciting fight. But after watching it, it's like, man, that should have been on like the early prelims.
What are your thoughts on this one, Steve?
Oh yeah, he's definitely telling the truth. This what I was trying to stay awake for the next one too, because they set me up for that. Trying to keep up with the fight. It's very dull. Anthony Smith, I was watching it, catching his highlights. You know how they promote right before the fight. Mm-hmm. And you can just see the difference on way Anthony's. I was like, dang, he's striking more viciously. than his last fights. And I don't think he has the same intensity as we knew him before fighting John Jones. And to what I think, it's been a decline on his intensity on how he used to fight since then. But very dull fight. And for him to, so to speak, used to be the elite, I think his decline to be a what do you call it? A gatekeeper. I think that's his name. And not to crap on anybody that's on those commentators, but everybody on that commentator is, pretty much, they've lost, but they got a pretty sturdy reputation about them. To me, Anthony Smith, I think to be on that panel, you got to be more prestige in your wins and at least have I guess, to be on the Mount Rushmore of the commentators. I think he should be finding how to win a lot more efficiently.
So you're saying that he shouldn't be on the commentary team because he sucks?
Not that. It just seems like everybody's up there that can have a way to say why they're up there. That they're pretty much elite. Like you said,
what about Paul Felder?
I think he's pretty elite to where, like, there's certain wins in this fighting game. Like, he never got knocked out cold. He had a pretty good career, exciting, and I think there's a different respect on how people retire, regardless of not getting the belt. Dominic Cruz.
What about like a Dean Thomas or like a Yves Edward?
Yeah, those are legends in the game. From what I think so. Especially Yves Edwards, what he's done in the game.
I don't know, man. I feel like Smith is in that same kind of realm as like a Felder, because Smith is a former title contender.
Yeah.
Yeah, but all of Felder's losses, though, like all his submission losses or his decision losses were like split decisions. Like he was always in the fight. He never just got, completely dominated like that. And Anthony Smith, his record now is what, like 38-20 or something?
I don't know what it is. Something like he fights a lot.
Yeah, 38-20. He's 38-20 now. So I mean, he's above 500, but it's creeping up there. A lot of the people that you named, they didn't have such a decline like that. And I think Steve's right. It's kind of the same thing that used to happen to people after GSP fought him. It happens with John Jones now. Anybody who fights John Jones usually just goes straight downhill.
And I don't know if you want to make this comparison, although I probably not. But, talking about other fighters on the panel, it's like people have a kind of a portal way to say it because they've been championships. Nobody wants to be a Charles Barkley and then Shaq can say, "Where's the rings?" You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think he's prestige enough to be, in the limelight what he used to be. I know they wouldn't take nothing. I'm not saying not to have a commentator, but it seems like he just swooped and he's not having wins to stay relevant on a panel to even. Yeah, I think of him as elite, but he's not fighting elite lately.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you're better at coaching than you are actually playing the game. Like maybe they see his insight as a reason to keep him on the panel.
I think he's a good commentator.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like, what's the point of him staying in it if he's not going to get a title shot? Like, I really don't see the point. I mean, to provide for his family, I'm sure those checks are nice. But yeah, I don't know. What do you see for Smith next, Admire?
I don't know, man. Like, I don't think UFC's updated their rankings because they still got Anthony Smith at number 10, and they don't even have Roman in the top 15. So I think we need to wait on the updates and kind of see where things fall. But I don't know if they fought, but maybe Dominic Reyes and Anthony Smith, both lost to John Jones, both kind of been on the downhill. since John Jones? Maybe something like that.
So you hold up. He's against who? Repeat that. Who's that?
Dominic Reyes.
Nah. Is Dominic Reyes even ranked?
Number 13.
I guess, yeah. I guess that makes sense. I don't even have anything to rebut that. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I liked it when I heard it. Dominic's coming off of a win, and if he's behind Smith, and Smith's on the decline, I think they meet up. And I don't think they fought yet either. So,
Yeah. Well, if he wants to keep fighting, he definitely needs to take a step back. Another commentator popped in my head. What isn't Michael Chiesa on the commentating team too?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Would you consider him elite?
Oh no. Oh no, not at all.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, Anthony Smith definitely has options post fighting career, but if he wants to continue, I guess he could just like I might say, just put on like interesting stylistic matchups, but not exciting fight in my view. But let's talk about the co-main event on this card. Originally, it's supposed to be Diego Lopez versus Brian Ortega, but why did I say 4 hours before the fight? Ortega was not able to show up to this fight. And I hadn't done my research on exactly what happened, so y'all gonna have to fill me in on the spot. What happened to Ortega? Why he had to pull out so close to the fight?
I'm hearing it was from the weight cut. He had like 103-degree fever, so they weren't going to allow him to fight. The UFC didn't want to scrap it. Dan Ige lives like right around the corner from where they were having the event. He could make, I think he weighed in like 163 or something like that. So they made it a 165 catch weight, and game on.
That's crazy. He just got up off his couch and went and fought.
I can't remember where he said he was somewhere when he got the call. I can't remember. It was wherever it was. It was kind of, yeah, he was getting a massage, and when he got the call.
That's kind of legendary if you think about it. That means his like team had to be pretty close too, if for him to just go out there. So I mean, if he's Vegas based, but like, how do you even round your team up that fast to get ready for something like that?
Yeah, your team might be having a barbecue or be out drunk, Yeah, but it is the fights. His team might have been there for somebody else or just been in the crowd already. But why wasn't he at the fights?
Yeah, that's a crazy scenario. Has that even happened before? I know it's happened the day before, like that close to a fight. I don't know. I have to check like the record books to see if
how long ago did he fight?
How long ago did Dan Ige fight?
Dan Ige fought Andre Fili back in February. So he wasn't in camp. He wasn't anything. He was living life.
Yeah, he won that fight too. So yeah, he definitely won't get punished, even though it says a loss on his record. And we'll talk about the fight in a second. But yeah, man, that takes some balls to do, just to hop out your couch and face somebody like that. High risk, high reward. So, hey, shout out to Dan Ige for that. But Lopez also had to get ready for a different opponent, last minute opponent. But at least, like you said, he was in camp, and I don't even know how long he was in camp, because I feel like this fight got changed a bunch of times before it got to Ortega and Lopez. This whole card was a mess. But let's talk about the actual fight. Round one, Lopez came out like a man on fire, and he was swinging for the fences. And towards the end of the round, he tried for that dart choke. It was deep, but he wasn't able to, finish it. Round two, it was all grappling by Lopez. And I thought, all right, he's going to probably do more of this at the round three. But round three, Ige showed some heart, and he was catching Lopez with some nice flush shots and ended the round on top, but it was too little too late. Lopez was able to get those first two rounds. And what are your thoughts on the actual fight, Amar?
For me, this is my fight of the year contender. I
Really?
mean, the just the whole story surrounding it, the fight itself, action packed. I mean, I loved everything about this fight. It's one that I will go back and rewatch multiple times. To me, the balls it takes to come from getting a massage, not preparing for a fight, no training camp, to go against a guy like Diego Lopez. Diego Lopez, his three previous fights, he won each one at a minute and a half. He's getting people out of there. A couple knockouts, a couple submissions in those three. So a dangerous guy. And Ige came in there, put on a good fight, took it the distance, had his big moments. I would watch this fight again. If they, run this back to make it a fair fight, because I don't think it was really fair for either fighter. Ige did not have a training camp, any preparation, anything like that. Diego Lopez went through a weight cut, so he was strained where Ige wasn't. So each of them had their advantages and disadvantages. What would have happened on a full fight camp of these guys training for each other? I mean, it was very exciting, and shout out to them both, because my fight of the year contender.
Oh man, story of the year, I agree with you, but fight of the year, I don't know. That might be a stretch. Maybe I gotta rewatch it. I feel like both fighters definitely had their moments. It was definitely some moments like, ooh, but as far as like wall to wall action, I don't know. Maybe because I was multitasking while watching it, but maybe I got to go back and rewatch it. What were your thoughts on this one, Steve?
Yeah, same with me. But shout out to Diego also, because from what I hear, he didn't have to take that fight and would have got paid anyway. So he took the fight, when he didn't have to save the card. So that shows his character. A lot of people are saying that's BMF material and stuff. So shout out to both of those fighters. But from what I saw and remember, Diego is a sharp fighter. And like I said, based off Diego had a short notice off the couch. I mean, compare that to a plumber. Your main line's broke. He pulled a wake up late night and go fix the problem. And that is a good company man, and he's going to get credit for that. And like you said, as far as fight of the year, I wouldn't agree, but definitely should get I'm pretty sure they have reward ceremonies for UFC. They should get rewards for that, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. So I really taking such a short notice fight didn't really probably do Lopez any favors as far as like the rankings or anything goes. This kid, he has some potential to him. I guess the only thing left for him to do is keep facing, tougher opposition. So what do you really see the ceiling for this kid, Lopez? I'll start for you, Amar.
I mean, just from what I've seen, he's got what it takes to get up there towards the top. I don't know if he'll ever win a belt, but I'm sure he'll fight for one. I mentioned that he had the three previous fights that only went a minute and a half. Well, he kind of went against two lesser known guys in those, but then one of the TKOs was against Yusuf, which, it is known is a decent fighter. Mm-hmm. So, and he's very tall, mm-hmm. for his weight. He's got a lot of style. He's got a lot of tools. He can he's got a ground game. So I I don't know what his ceiling is, but I can tell you that I think he's going to do great things.
Steve?
Sorry, I was distracted. You're talking about Lopez?
Yeah, it was his ceiling.
He looked good. I still think he needs testing. He has sharp striking enough to where you have to watch out or you'll get knocked out. He reminds me of a bigger Sandhagen, and I don't know if y'all can agree with that, but I feel like he strikes like Corey Sandhagen and very slick. I think he has a high promising ceiling, but I have to see a fight to where he's tested, and I think just by the fact that he can go a decision and he's a striker and we want to see finishes, and I think he has a long road to go as far as he's going to meet his match. So that's what I want to see, if he can overcome somebody that we can kind of compare.
So maybe this Dan Ige fight was kind of a blessing in disguise because they were throwing him into the deep end by giving him the number 3 guy, and Lopez is only ranked 14. Ige is number 13, is ahead of him. I don't know if that'll affect the rankings since it wasn't a 145 fight. It was like catch weight. So I don't know. I feel like you should probably take a step back and kind of let him climb the rankings naturally. I don't know if any of these guys got fights lined up, but you got Bryce Mitchell sitting there at 12. He's got a name for himself with his wacky online personality. You got Lerone Murphy at number 11. Giga Chikadze and Calvin Kattar are tied at number 10 or number 9. They're tied at number 9. So I say you maybe try to get him in there, one of those guys. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know what y'all thoughts on that.
Yeah, I was looking at the rankings, and the first one that stuck out was Bryce Mitchell. Put Diego Lopez in there against Bryce Mitchell. Let's see what happens.
Do you agree with that, Steve?
I can definitely agree with that. He's facing a striker and almost gets some redemption from, that last fight. Can't remember his name. Josh Emmett. Face a striker again and a taller one too. And I think Bryce Mitchell will get some redemption back. I think that's a good fight for him up in the rankings. And you guys mentioned somebody else other than Bryce Mitchell.
Like a Giga Chikadze is tied at number 9 with Calvin Kattar.
Yeah, I think he's got a fight coming up, doesn't he?
Calvin Kattar or Giga?
Giga Chikadze.
I don't know. I have to look that up. Everything's changing with the sport so fast.
Calvin Kattar. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, Giga's got Arnold Allen on the 24th of this month at 304. So that's probably off the table. But Calvin Kattar, I don't know what he's up to nowadays.
Yeah, that would be a good fight schedule.
I feel for some reason that beating that he got from Max Holloway always sticks out in my mind. I don't know if he'll ever be the same again, but Kattar's got a fight actually scheduled against Kyle Nelson at Fight Night 244, so that's off the table. I don't know if Bryce Mitchell, I don't know if you had that up, Adline. I don't know if Bryce Mitchell has anything lined up.
Let's take a look here.
He lost to Emmett, but I don't see anything lined up for him. So, yeah, you can throw those two in there together. Wouldn't be mad at that.
Unless Bryce Mitchell's still on concussion protocol.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that knockout was nasty.
Devastating.
But, yeah, like I always said, Lopez looks like he has a pretty high ceiling. But let's talk about this main event rematch from last November because Conor McGregor dropped out. We won't get into that again. Alex Pereira defeating Yuri Prohaska, second round knockout. So round one was a lot of them kind of like downloading information and both guys trying to find a range. Alex was working that jab and he was ripping those leg kicks. And then with 1 second left in the round, he dropped Yuri with that left hook and seemed like Yuri wasn't really able to shake the cobwebs. You could tell he was, kind of discombobulated after getting dropped with that hook. And then round two, right out the gate, almost head kick, ground and pound, and game over. And Alex Pereira is still your UFC light heavyweight champion. What are your thoughts on this one, Amar?
Yeah, I don't think Jerry ever really recovered from that hook, man. He just was wide open at the start of that second round and took that kick, and he was on wobbly feet for minutes and minutes after. I know Jerry is a top tier fighter. I just don't like his style. He throws them strikes in and out, and he drops his hands way too much. He leaves himself open way too much, and we've seen it multiple times now. For Alex, Alex did what Alex does. Is he processes things, kind of fills them out. He starts downloading, looking for the holes. Where can he get them strikes in? And then he just takes advantage of it. I don't think I learned much about really either fighter that I didn't already know. What I did learn is I want to see Alex fight John Jones.
Jumping the gun a little bit. Steve, what are your thoughts on that fight?
Yeah. Like he said, he got him, filling him out, but always in famous fashion, he torques that left hook, caught him with one of his special, punches. And then I don't think we've seen a significant kick knockout to where probably that wasn't what he was anticipating, let alone he got, a rock from that left hook. As soon as he got kicked, I automatically thought, if y'all remember Rush Hour, like, which one of y'all kicked me? That's where that kick came from. And he didn't see it, and you can tell somebody that I don't think he would have got caught by that if he wasn't rocked the previous round. Because I was like, man, that was amateurish for him not to see that starting off in the first seconds. But he got that off, and like I said, Yuri's style, it's good until you got a good, accurate striker like Pereira. And it's almost like you're playing Russian roulette. You have to be perfect on your footing, or else he'll torque a left hook, and look what happened. So, and I think he even said, which I don't believe in, he says he has to either evolve or retire. And I don't think he'll retire, but definitely evolving, because you have to literally know you have to stop your style when you're up against certain people. And I guess he couldn't. And I think he knew that just by in the first fight trying to take him down. But he didn't get that off, obviously. So
yeah, it was nasty. And if I'm Yuri, I'm a little bit salty, or he should be a little salty at the UFC. I feel like they set him up for failure, taking this short minute or last minute fight, replacing Connor. I know both of them fought at 300, but Yuri took a whole lot more damage than Alex did. Like, he lost that first round. I think he almost got finished in that fight at 300, and then he was able to come back and get the finish. But he didn't really have any time to recover. Like, I don't even know why he took the fight. I get why he took the fight. When opportunity knocks at your door, you got to take it. But I don't know. I feel like he shouldn't have jumped right back into that with a deadly striker like Alex Pereira. I don't know. What your thoughts on that, am I?
It's ultimately his choice to take it. He's a professional fighter. He knows, the consequences of taking a short fight. He knows what can happen. I think he honestly believed that he was still in the last fight, and things could be different this time. But Alex is just insanely world-class striking, and There's nothing you can do about it. I think I've already said it. Jerry's style is not a longevity style. No matter how good or bad of a person he goes against, he's eventually going to get caught by different people. Even if it was somebody that wasn't the best striker in the world, when he drops his hands, he's going to get caught. And that's just the style he has.
Yeah. It's good, Steve.
I think in a lot of fights, for him to wake up to the beast we know him, he had to get caught in a lot of his fights. You know, the Teixeira, you know, you see him turn on his ultra instinct and get focused. And it's like, how many times you're going to fight a good striker to catch you a good time and you can't recover, which a lot of his fights, upcoming fights, that kind of I felt like did happen to him. You know, he got lucky. He didn't get finished and recovered.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's got a interesting style. And like Emma said, hands down, you know, it looks cool, but sometimes it can go really bad. And like this instance, he paid the price with his consciousness. So Admire gave us a little preview earlier, I guess, what should happen with Pierre next. And people are saying heavyweight division, and I guess Admire wants him to face John Jones. Why is that, Admire?
That's the fight that interests me. I mean, of course, I want to watch John Jones fight, but in my mind, the Stipe ship has sailed. The Tom Aspinall, I'm not as interested in as I am Pierre. If you look at John Jones's resume, you know, when's the last time he went against an elite striker, not somebody that can just land heavy shots, an elite striker with pinpoint accuracy, with crazy power? I don't think he's ever faced somebody like that. Alex is 6'4", 79-inch reach. So him and Jones, you know, when Jones was light heavyweight, were really similar in size. You know, John Jones is beefed up since going to heavyweight. I want to see what Alex can do with his body to get up to heavyweight. It just, to me, it's the most interesting fight that John Jones could possibly have. Like I said, at the Stipe fight, it's kind of just out of sight, out of mind now.
John Jones just faced a world-class kickboxer who's like elite in heavyweight division with Cyril Gahn.
Who?
Cyril Gahn. Literally his last fight. And that's exactly why I don't want to see Pierre face Jones, because I think the same results will happen. Look, Pierre is a bigger light heavyweight. He could definitely get up to heavyweight, but John Jones has NFL siblings in his family, so I always knew that he would be able to fill out that frame, but I'm not sure about Pierre. He looks like he's one of those more like slender, limber fighters. I think he to be honest, he's a cruiserweight. Actually, I think, like I said, he's a bigger lightweight, but he's like a cruiserweight. Even though UFC doesn't have the cruiserweight division, 225, he'd be like perfect for that division if they had it. I think he'd be a little bit undersized heavyweight, and I don't think it would go well for him if he faced John Jones, to be honest, because John Jones is not going to play that striking game with him. No, a younger John Jones, he was a little bit cockier. He wants to be at your own game, but I think at this point, he just wants to keep his legacy intact, so he's not going to play that striking game. And they say Alex Pereira is like a fish out of water during grappling practice and whatnot. So, I mean, it sounds good on paper, but I don't know if that'll turn out well for him. What are your thoughts, Steve?
Sounds entertaining, but I like I said, I don't think so because of his, like I said, his body weight. He has a small frame. Like I said, it doesn't fill out like a heavy waist like a Cyril Gahn or even what John Jones did. Even in light heavyweight, he looks sleek, and I don't think he can fill out to some people who are weighing 245, 250, depending on who he's fighting. You know, if he fights somebody 265, I mean, dang. And would that transfer into knockout power, which I think he may have, but that's a factor. I would be very entertained in a Cyril Gane fight, but I guess they're trying to fast track him into this Triple C champ. I don't know. I guess his options are open. I would lean more towards Stipe, but I also feel like that it also would be an easy fight to take him down if John Jones fought him. So I don't know what they would do.
And what happened to ever like clearing out your division? This is only his second title defense.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he still got some opponents that he could face at light heavyweight. Even though they had the kickboxing, I don't know if it was a quadrilogy. I can't remember how many times they faced each other in kickboxing. But him and Izzy are 1-1 in MMA. You still got that.
I think
he's coming back at middleweight to face DDP this fall. So I feel like it's still options for him at the lower weight classes, and it's a little bit too early for him to try to jump up to heavyweight and get 3 belts. Like, establish your legacy in the division you have your belt in.
I mean, I agree with that, but for me, and I'm normally the one to say stuff like that, but I think that just with the climate of the UFC now, they really need more faces. That I'm used to them letting people kind of move around and do what they want when they're winning and they have belts and stuff. So I deep down do think he should have more fights at light heavyweight. He should do more in his division, but I'm also been spoiled by what they've been letting people do, so I could understand it. I mean, I'm not gonna shoot down him moving up to heavyweight. Maybe move him up there to heavyweight and give him just a test fight up there. Against like Cyril Gane or Jolton Almeida.
I was about to say it would have made perfect sense if the fight wasn't scheduled for him, the Tom Aspinall. So if he did win, he can just sit on the John Jones Stipe, and just go back down to light heavy and middleweight, since that's already clogged up.
I don't know. I know he was scheduled to face Jamal Hill, and me and Steve were talking about this last week. I think his suspension is up this month. Like, I would be intrigued with a Khalil Roundtree and pair a fight at light heavyweight. I know Roundtree's like only like 8, but still, I've seen him fast track people just because of the intrigue of the matchup. Because I'm looking at people ranked. I mean, Magomed Ankalaev. I don't know if that's going to sell a lot of pay-per-views, even though it might be an intriguing fight. They're not going to put Hill back in there. I don't know if you'll put Blachowicz in there either. Alexander Rakic, I guess that's interesting. And then Krylov, Johnny Walker, you can't put him in there after he got sent to the Shadow Realm in Abu Dhabi. Not Abu Dhabi, it was in Saudi Arabia. And then right behind that is Roundtree. So you can maybe make your case for Roundtree to jump up there.
Yeah, Roundtree is the only one that sticks out of that list that I would like to see Pierre against in light heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to do it just so he could see if he could test himself, I guess. But I know wins and losses don't matter as much in MMA as it does like in a boxing. But if he goes up to heavyweight and gets beat, and we've seen Volkanovski do it, and he didn't really lose any luster. But I think it still takes off a little bit luster if you go up there and get beat and then go back down and defend your belt. But like you said, it'd be entertaining. But I don't know, some big boys up there, and that's the biggest weight jump. So I don't know. And then, like, what do you even do with Yuri coming off that loss? Admire.
Have him and Jamal Hill ever fought?
I don't think so. Both of them got injured and had to give up the belts, and they were scheduled to face each other before Hill blew out that Achilles. So they haven't faced each other.
I mean, that fight makes sense, but then they both just fought for the title and both just lost. The winner, you would almost expect to have to get a another run at it, and that's too quick of a turnaround to be doing all these. So I think Jamal Hill and Jerry both need to kind of step back and hit those tail end guys. We were just talking Anthony Smith taking a step back, but maybe Jamal Hill and Anthony Smith, something like that. But then you do like Jerry against Johnny Walker.
I don't know. Johnny Walker needs to take some time off after getting starts like that. I don't know. What's Uncle Iev doing right now?
I thought I heard a fight coming up.
But a lot of these guys already fought each other. It's almost playing like a round robin. It's hard to keep up with. Uncle Iev, he had that main event against Johnny Walker. Damn, Johnny Walker needs to sit down, man, because I forgot about that. Just happened in January. Uncle Iev knocked him out, and then Ozdemir sent him to the Shadow Realm a week and some change ago. Yeah, Walker needs to sit down and recover. I don't know. Uncle Iev, it's been since January since he fought. Yeah, I don't see anything scheduled for Uncle Iev.
Yeah, need to get something scheduled.
He's probably just sitting. If I were him, I'd just sit and wait for a title shot. Either Alex Pereira's going to go up there and vacate the belt, or maybe an interim belt, or making your case where you get the next title shot, especially being ranked number 2. So yeah, if you're Uncle Iev, I say title shot or bust. But
yeah, kind of have him wait on that, and then, I mean, realistically, before you do anything with Alex Pereira, you have to see what happens with Izzy and DDP, because your money maker and the fight that makes the most sense is having Pereira versus Izzy if Izzy wins.
That's what I said. But that's an interesting spot they're in, because we saw Izzy at 205 and he weighed in like at 200 or 201. So I think they would probably want to make that a 205 fight. But I don't know. Can Pierre make 185? It wasn't that long ago. He was at 185.
Yeah, I mean, his last middleweight fight was Izzy about a year ago.
He got knocked out. I would figure that trilogy more than him at heavyweight, to be honest.
Yeah. The trilogy fight, it makes the most sense for rankings purposes, but also money purposes. Or I kind of wish there was a 195 division. Put Izzy against Pierre at 195.
I mean, they have it exists, but just not in the UFC, super middleweight.
Yeah, I know we don't like the belt that much, but tell them BMF fight 190, 195.
Yeah, I don't like that belt. You're right. I don't like it. Especially the way they've been doing it. They've been passing it around with the lighter weight guys. I don't know. They have options. I'd be intrigued with the Izzy fight, but like you said, we got to see how it shakes out with DDP. But as far as the records for this pay-per-view goes, me and Admire both went 2-2. I threw the Ortega Lopez fight out since we didn't predict that fight got changed. So me and Admire went 2-2, and Steve didn't have too good of an outing. He went 0-4. It is fixed.
Yeah, I think that was the first.
Yeah. I don't think it's been a card where nobody got at least one fight, right? But that Ortega dropping out didn't help either. But all in all, as far as the main card goes, if it wasn't for that pair fight, this would have been a mid card than me. I don't know about y'all's feelings on it. It sounds like the prelims had more action, so I'll definitely go back and watch that. But as far as the main card goes, that was a little bit underwhelming. I don't know. What do you think, Amar?
I think it was good. I mean, it definitely wasn't what it was supposed to be. The early prelims were all decisions. I think there were 4 or 5 decisions in a row. So don't go back and watch those because it had me worried seeing decision. The regular prelims were pretty decent. You know, like I said, the Lopez fight against Ige, it was great. It was okay. I mean, it was one of those ones. It was like borderline fight night, but you had such a big name in Alex Pereira and Jiri that it couldn't have been a fight night. But hopefully we get what was supposed to be. Hopefully we still get Chandler McGregor.
Wishful thinking, but we'll see. Overall, were you entertained by the car, Steve?
Yeah, somewhat. I guess how you would promote your business, you would put the best thing on top, and boy, they made you wait up for that Pierre because the other was kind of dreadful to watch. There were some entertainment moments in fights, but as far as these pay-per-view cards, I would expect more entertainment throughout the card, and I don't think that produced that for me.
Yeah, I agree. Well, next month, well, not next month, it's the end of this month. We'll be going, UFC will be going overseas, jumping over the pond over there. I think they're at the O2. No, they're at the Co-op Live Arena. They're in Manchester. I can't remember the last time they went to Manchester. Usually they're over in London at the O2. So they'll be making their return to Manchester. It'll be Edwards and Muhammad, part 2. No, the first fight ended. And then another fight that ended with Aspinall Blades 2. It will be the co-main event. So, we'll be back to preview and predict that later on this month. But that'll bring us to the end of the show. Make sure to follow us on all social media. Make sure to follow the YouTube page. And make sure to follow us on all audio feeds. And that'll do it for us here at Haymaker Combat Sports. Until next time, be safe out there. Later.
Hit the takedown, ground and pound, that was from the top. Heel hooking on more plot, I leave you in the knot. Pound for pound, been the greatest. Sitting on the top, man, I'm laughing.